Starting in the yellow prayer book with opening prayers on page 3. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path.
Tongge doje jere zonro jinje mada doje ponjomba surje lumbo tavrje beg shakje jarbu jabdong zan zor dorjen janjen delo naro tang baba mala chuje gambo ba pammo traba jawan dogong ba kajo lama nam da join je danan zara damje da lama la bala je so zo lo so yon den jam zunga la wa din de don jin de ba ge le zo chen ni zo da so jin je de na tu som chi ba me ye sen ge ga da ge ma le de da tam je le dang ye dang ve cha je wo da ge lo ju san ro war sin je la de so chu lam de ro war sin je la de lam trba se war sin je la de so trba yi ju san ja war sin je la de so gang ge tin jin re war jong ga ba me ba je ba me ba ta me ba Wa me ba ro me ba ta de do me do je me ju ba nye je den ba zo ba san je ma nan je tam ba de la chang cha de zhen jian za we la ma ji je gu song do je xin lan da 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 ge je lan pe de da ge den ba dan sun je je dong jia jin ba ro ba jin je la de so da tre azo zambo jo ba mulam tuni lamzang shibate da mentu ne hyogo yo bare tene tela chirtang yin la dun da raye chudog go ne tin yo ba indu da yin la dun da raye je ba yin chu hyusim bare da tren raye go ba ten res tene da
Today we continue the teachings on the prayer for excellent conduct, the commentary on the prayer for excellent conduct called the excellent path that accomplishes the twofold purpose. And we have said this text consists of the 7 branches, and then there are 16 chapters. Now we finished the 7 branches, and we are in the 8th of the 16 chapters. We finished the 8th chapter, and now we continue with chapter number 9.
Tene da chertang di chuchi wa ma zong ho na nge tabar den dong ko yore de gambo ba ke song wa ke tene chu ye se dere de de nga zo nam ju lo chu son ro war sin je lab de so se ne dere mulan tambo de tene ngaran so ta lo chu son ro shiba de zo chi hyu de ta lo do nam ju to ne lo chu son ro go yo wa re Lodo nam yin nang ni yang, nga tso chi mataba shibanda gom je takar chimbo re. Ta mataba gom dang la mambu yo re de, mataba gom shibande mek zum tsukzo jide mataba gom, yang de tsadu, dine mataba san ndu hiti mi suwa ina, dine de tsanga ping toko yo ma re, de yin zang. Mataba gom dang de nam jun, nga rang tso, Drowa, Dukpa, Nyarwa la suba tamche to trinhi tingo wachi re. Tene perna ta ngarang tsu namjun gonda ma nyar ka yorwa, ma nyar pakab su ngarang tsu ka ti tulo tu su tsama pi na nyar ka yorwa, tulo tsama gong su nyar ka marwa. Ta tulo tu su ma pi nyar du, ta mata pa chik trimba ina ti kab su. Tulo tu su nga ka riwe si ta. Tulo tu su ngani nga riwe. Namjun nga tsu nga ka tulo si nga samba ta hyuk chenpo yor. Ta tulo tu su ma pi tsadu, ta che ngune che gantar ngarang su che xia chewa kap chi che jitang chi yora ten rao rao re. Mata pa trin tena go yo pares.
Before we start the teachings, I always recite this prayer, and one of these prayers is the 4 dharmas of Gampopa, and the first of these is, grant your blessings that my mind turns toward the Dharma. And for the mind to turn toward the Dharma, most importantly, mainly we reflect on the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and within those 4 thoughts, what's most important is to reflect upon impermanence. And there are many different ways of meditating on impermanence. So one could sit down and close one's eyes and sit in a meditation posture and meditate on impermanence. But if one just does that and then after one's meditation one just forgets about impermanence, then of course that's of no benefit. So the way we should practice impermanence is at any time in whatever we do, whether we are walking around or sitting, standing, sleeping, and so on, lying down. For example, in the evening when you go to bed, and before you go to bed, you first take off your clothes, because nobody goes to bed with their clothes on. So when you take off your clothes, then you think about impermanence. Think about those clothes and think that, am I those clothes? Do you identify with those clothes? And then when you take them off, it is just actually very similar of taking off this self, and when you go to sleep, it is just like dying actually. So this is how we should reflect on impermanence really on an ongoing basis.
Tani ma ni pa kap su yang, ta namjun nga zo pardo ke ti ka se na miksa chi xie yor ba, ti kap su chi xie ke yor re, yin na yang, nga rang zo pardo ke ka ti xie ndu ti ka la san no je tang te me namjun ma tong tanda ma yin pa chi. Nga rang zo ni yung pa kap su, ni ke tem ram tang, nga rang zo xio pa kap che, ta nga rang zo njunga la pa tem ram te, chik pa chik jang re, ngon chu ma chu zang che pa re ma do. Tanda yin zang, ta ngarang su gonda ma nyi wande, ta kantar chi hiwa ta chepar mi ba chi la nduhi ya ne, tani ta mataba ching tanda che ba ya na, mataba hiwa de ta chik du chik jiwa shima ke le kar jibo san na ma tang, tsen de ke ka nga tang, tutsu mambo la dongli chi to ya ke tap sem chi mi tanda cha do yore.
So then when you go to sleep, this is also often related to the teachings that we receive on the Bardo. And so we receive those Bardo teachings, and while we listen to those teachings, then often we just really think about it while we listen to the teachings. But then once they're over, normally we don't always really think about that. And so when we go to sleep, the stages of dissolution as we fall asleep and the stages of dissolution when we die later are actually exactly the same. It is just a difference of recognizing or not recognizing this. But actually, going to sleep at night and dying are exactly the same. So if you view it that way, you also will remember impermanence. And remembering impermanence, therefore, is not only something for the purpose of future lives, the next life, but it even helps now in this life to accept the difficulties that you experience in this life. It is this reflection on impermanence is like a medicine for the mind in this life.
다 되네 추이게난게 니바데 추 람든 로어 진젤랍도 소송게 요래 다추 람든 로 문로 세반데 데네양 레줌데라 니시지 마지당 데네 잠닝지 장초그 셈 데소라 냥리제 마젠 달토도 요래 예자 차닝 아란솔라 산제게 닝보 데킹 닝보 시바데 요데바 요래 디 짐생레 티네 대 유당데 간다레스나 딱그 셈제 남도 그 발생 리리 나로라 데네 코디 장초 그셈 제나라 데킹 님보 돈담 데킹 님보 데게 데네 미사 미반도 차데 요레 페나 나란서 티 남칸데 가힐로 어콩충충제 요나쿠 남카된도와 어콩충충제 타나 갑제 그 카맥지나나 남카된 요데 요레 다 데나 이게 남케치 마찹서 메르코 데네 다 데인도 나란서 셈제 발생 탐제 라데네 다 장초 그셈제 돈단 장초 그셈다 데킹 님보 찍바레 데게 찹데 요자 데 나란서라 데게 누바나보 흉첨보 요데 요레 데는 내가 데는 참참 뭔가 이나 노자냐 진도다 뭐네 이나 노자 진도야 데타제 카미 바르지 로워 그 컨트롤바당 차당 그 이왕도 효르마도 카미 코니 뭐 이왕 효르로 데 수수란 투 요말데 다 닝지안로바 데가 뭐네 지도 nga chon ro ma shi ban da la mo le pin ta ya ge ne ba chian do ga nu ji ya ge ne ba chian do nge sam no mang bo tang nyong nga nyam ni thong bo yin la ko yo ma re sam no tang nyong pin ta ya ge ne ba chia yo ba de ta ko ran da bo je pan da da mang bo je ra ge do nge nga chu je ma le pin ta ya da na ge le ka ji le na dan de yin zang ran zu le ye de hin nim bo jang chu ge don dan jang chu ge sem de yo za 데니 추 람든 로고와이나 다다 딜냐면 지지데 가르친 버리스
Then of the four Gampopa, the four dharmas of Gampopa, the second one is grant your blessings that my dharma becomes the path. And whether or not your dharma practice becomes the path depends mainly on your certainty, your trust in karma, cause and effect, and also it depends on your bodhicitta, love and compassion. And then that is because on the basis, our fundamental nature is Buddha nature. So when we look at the mind, actually, once all of these thoughts have arisen and then go, the only thing that really is there and remains is this ultimate bodhicitta or Buddha nature. There's no other place to come back to. That's where we always come back to. It's just like there is space everywhere, even in a tiny little enclosure, like needles, or there is a little bit of space. There's nowhere where space doesn't pervade. And this all pervasiveness of space, that actually is the Buddha nature. And Buddha nature is the ultimate bodhicitta. And that is actually a great power that we all possess. And so I was thinking about this actually quite a bit. For example, there are some people who just harm others in what they do. They just hurt others. And then I also think that like those poor beings, those poor things, because they can't really help it, because they are totally confused and they just don't understand. And so even though there are those kind of individuals, it's really thinking about the general potential or kind of capacity of a human being, and was thinking about how human beings can bring about benefit and how human beings can cause a lot of harm, and which kind of potential is of greater power. Are they more able to bring harm or more able to bring benefit? I was really thinking about this a lot. I'm not saying that I have like high levels of practice, but I really was thinking about it, and I was really came to the conclusion that there is just so much evidence that even though human beings do cause a lot of harm, their potential to do good is far exceeds their potential to do harm. And that is because they possess Buddha nature. And the Buddha nature is the ultimate bodhicitta. So they all possess ultimate bodhicitta, and for this reason, their ability to do good exceeds their ability to do harm. And that's an important point to understand when it comes to turning one's Dharma practice into the actual path.
Te korang ke jiu la kigeris jiu la kapte ja to te kok jiu mambo se no yo yang jiu to so ke cha de la pa ke ke to ko yo mare yang ko ka re jiu to so ka re to ko yo se mbo se to ko yang mbo se no yo ta de la cha ji to jim bu tops cha korang ke jiu ji bo ta re de sim ji yin da na ke ji to ko mare ke de ji bo la no ji do re Then 지우도 그 짐부탑스데 바지볼로 노치도 그래데 벌 노진도 그래. 당가서 드나리 마선은 근데 소소 상당나. 소소 그제 노치 탑사데라. 때네 오늘 닌지 지나 제 초초를 간서 소소 노치 탑사데 라 초랑의 조아 임바제 하람 띵키도 요래. 초랑의 냠마보지 임바 띵키도 요래. 다들 닌지 미지 텔라 지 노로 진데나 초랑은 처음에 바랑을 듣는 처음에 바 잉을 듣는 모sam이 바 기바데 차로 요로와 디스 증문내 책 소소 그 갑대 자 소소 고사된 토코요 말해 되네 다 드라인자 단 뭐소드나 삼노 단네 다 추람든 로알라 장족셈 다 다른 것은 뭐 노지 터비야 노지 바지나 간다 드나 자와들 내가 독자 레트비바데 되네 레줌데 그냥 소소로 처대다블레 연구 요로와 다시 거는 빼지 휴바 주랑 지우이나 레준데 차나 이차도 요르다 주랑 지우이나 레준데 차 자차 우스와 가르라 하왁 다들 레준데 주랑 따다 소로 레준데 하옥나 히리 하옥 주랑 따다 조로 지우 따다 조서 아까세 저랑 그 버직 딱다 줘 여러봐. 저랑 버직 딱다 줘도 되네. 다 레줌데 그 저랑 딱다 줘 용 거봐. 다 가세. 이나 양가 치우이나 혹 아니 혹랑 딱다 줘라. 혹 항아 딱다 줘라. 차데 레줌데 차나 이리 랍소. 간생가 보대. 저랑 그 버 딱다 줘라. 버그 저랑 딱다 줘 타마소. 이나 차케 딱다 줘서 저랑 레드 혹나 히리스 오늘 들어서 는 다운 거요레스 레혹 저랑 레장 레혹 저와 저랑 레드 손잔을 하게 거 지가 따다서 노래 남지 아까서 하고 무슨 알아
In Tibet, there is this saying, it says,
차 Jitop.
Jitop.
Jimbutop.
Jitop. It says like a hawk gets a bird, a little bird, and the little bird gets the bug, the insect.
Top sibada hat derida.
Oh.
Top sibada kol nu jitobano.
Or like it's like getting as in harming, being able to harm. So the hawk kind of the hawk defeats the birdie, and the birdie defeats the bug. So it's because the hawk is stronger than a little birdie, and because the hawk is able to kill the bird, and not anything bigger than the hawk is killing what he's able to kill. So he's killing the little birds. And the birds are not able to kill the hawk, so they won't go after the hawk, but the birds are able to kill the bugs. So the birds go after the bugs. So basically, they go after whatever they can go after, and not whatever they cannot go after. So they harm whoever they can. And human beings, we actually are not really like that, because even if we can harm somebody, we can also have compassion for them. And if you want to harm someone, then surely that one is somehow in an inferior position, somehow weaker than you. So you can harm them. But as human beings, we also have some a sense of shame for doing that, an embarrassment. And even if we can harm somebody, we don't do it because we feel compassion for them. So in order, when the Dharma becomes the real path, our Dharma practice becomes the path, we cultivate a bodhicitta, and even if one is able to cause harm, one knows that karma is going to ripen. So, for example, if I'm the little bird, and even though I'm not harming the hawk, I'm going after the bugs, I still get the karma of the hawk because I'm not any better. I'm just doing the same thing. I'm just going after what I'm able to go after. And so in this way, karma ripens.
Ta sumbade karere chu sumbade truwa yi lo chusar chulam lam truwa sevar jinjelab de soros. Lam tur sendo de yinda ken tur de yo mar chadam mosong ke yong le hyondor tere. Den de tapen na chorang jamso jing na rona jamso ka dane balab chimbo yo sala le dewana yin re da. Tikap so che chorang na chi rawang mi dewan ro re chorang dane ti ran yin ka ko yongor man bu zon ro ya de so dane jamso ka lab kare. Ta den de ngarang so ka chen du cha he dang de mo de so ngu simba chi go yo re. Doso ngu simba chi ne dan doso ke yewang de khorma song ba danda te kar chimo re.
And then the third Dharma is grant your blessings that confusion be dispelled from the path. And confusion is really nothing else but being controlled by attachment, anger, and ignorance. So, for example, it's like you're in a turbulent ocean tossed around by the waves without any autonomy, without any way out. You're completely taken over by the waves. And so in order for confusion to be dispelled on the path, therefore we have to recognize these turbulent waves of attachment, anger, and ignorance, and try not to become controlled by them.
Then Troa, I check about the Troa, his and Chawar Jinjalab the Sor Songoyer, then Kapsota, Jamso in a Jamsoke, Balab the Jamso Koranke, Karamtana, Balab the Yorimatoke, Jamso, my Chalot, and Tessa Martin road, Dane road, Sana, Balab Koran Yomara, Jamsola. Jamso Koran Halam, J. Better Koran. Je ta hekin lupang an ko chame ne de yobarowa ta ti na yin ke ngaran su tis ta nam to ke sem di chok do ba di yiwang da ma hyor ne kale semju ngo la ma taren yindo tene ngarang chu semju ngo de ngo chu de ta jamso ke te sa ma hyablo la ma sone tene ta chujar wa na yi cha de yor so so la jin par je ke mi de ba ta den de ngarang chu tang semju ngo ta lo de ta kazang rang jab jing gar chirum ba je nga zo nyam do gom jam ne de tab je dangwa me de so ande le la po rag ma reng ne tan da yin ngarang chu ke le to su nam tang ko ke thu je tang jam je to so te ne de ngarang chu ke de tab gom ja ya tan dal ni je de gom ja ya ka wa zam bo tho ba re ta to so tin hi tin ji ma ji dan de gar chim bo re 다 답lik bala namju traja na yorwa yangse teso yangse ni ka chu de thingma che ni tenen rek song sam choshi che ma ya ka che ni na ya goya cheren ro yore te goya cheren ro ya te perna te traja na ma record chi ya ya le korang kan de he te wa ja yong ko yo ma re chorana chorang ge lo namju de ya jen ro re yi de kwa sa pa ni ge yorwa te jum sen la te na te yangse ni je de ka tim bore
Then the fourth Dharma is grant your blessings that this confusion arises as wisdom. And so when you're on the ocean and you're tossed around by many waves, those waves only occur on the surface of the ocean, but there are no waves on the bottom of the ocean. So when confusion is cleared away, when confusion appears as wisdom, that is when it is like going to the bottom of the ocean where the water is still. So first you are tossed around by all the different thoughts and you have no control. And then slowly, as you keep looking at your mind and looking at these thoughts, you begin not to become controlled by them. And when you really recognize the essence of your mind, it is like you're diving into the deep bottom of the ocean where there are no waves. So then there are no more negative circumstances, there are no more obstacles in your mind. And so then the way we should look at the nature of the mind to recognize that, the other day, we were able to meditate together with His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche, and we were able to receive his really profound and incredible teachings, his instructions, which actually is not so easy to get these kind of instructions, but it's because we possess good karma and merit, and it's because Rinpoche possesses great compassion for us that we were able to come together and meditate together. So we are very fortunate. And so when we listen to these instructions, listen with mindfulness and don't forget them, but also they are recorded and they are available on the internet, so you can listen to them again and again. So you shouldn't just let it be thinking that I've heard those teachings, that's enough. But actually, the more you listen to one and the same teachings, the more your understanding of it will deepen. Actually, even though the recording itself, of course, the teaching doesn't change, it's always the same words, but as you keep listening to it over and over again, your own experience and your own understanding deepens, and therefore, every time you listen to it, deeper understanding arises within you.
Trua yi hisan char hiba de da kado ramra khaya da la khaya ndu so zo dene gom ke yung tin dan thle cha de yo bare da zo che hyu ngarang zun trua yi hisan char hiba de semju ngo ngu sen go wan de cha de yo bare wa da semju ngo de ngu sin sa yo ndo gam ndo sam no je dang ra ngarang zu ji ne zong de da da ba de wo de pa jo ko yo re chen ngo ko yo re de halam da 양가해다 냠니 난기 탐쟁가해가 다 난그 요래데 가해가 다 파치는 삼노 코랑 콜마냥 바망보 요시바로와 다 대는 나란서 오라 산도 나란서 메체 세반데 옥 준타르 메체 차도 요래 고마비데 ngazu meche che hibade jini ma hibade meche che hibade jiktin la phata soma jire chu ge tone ngene san dan de wo pha tan ya de meche chik cha de yore chong ya de meche chik cha de yore den du da wo pha da tang yong ba ka so wo pha tang ne pha tan ya ge de da tang du de je wo ge jun da ma che ka la mo jin do wa che ka la mo pha je pha tang de wo ge jun che ka la mo jin do wa 다 제가 남아지. 대고 봤던데 뭐 제가 남아 겁네. 어머니. 이제 타마진도와. 디워 타만데다 나랑 저 샘기직마 히바데니다. 돈다라고 하람다 디주는 나랑 저그 샘중어데 하고고 한다고 자기요 바로와. 간다지 자기 요르스는 샘데 네바 지마주 마음분도 마스 다다와라 뚜송데 다다와데 가레레. 다다와데 웍데 나랑 저 때보는 야용 닌카는 림바네네 데니 나네네 마용데 데 나오니 코 웍준 타마데 판로고 요로 티캅제 다 웍데 무심바이나 데니 데게 벤라고 지네 데니 저 샘토로 저서 카코르데 데니 샘데 데레데 다틱 샘 데니 샘데 데라차 데르 찍바차도 아 웍데 다 찍바차도 웍데 토니 산노 땅데 된 샘고도 저 산노 땅데 샘게 찍마 가나브 산노 땅거를 썸 땅거와 티 땅거를 썸 된 무생거라야 고는 그 준다고 연거요라 대바라고 차도요라 고든 대바로와 대바를 드니 옥 철응해야 돼 마음 바르와 델라사나 마당 옥 철응해야 델라 담보사나 마당 옥 고니 파당도 된 대바를 델라사나 마당 다옥 다다와데 가레르스디 나고니 코옥도 파다 간tar 파 옥도 파 준체바 나오지 자고요 옥파 준체바다 대대냠데 디옥도 무시는 가서 검자데다 또 대나산 몸보 땅거 요라 남지 pero hinet so gom de work de telesam ta ngar nagola teni sano ten de work de panroa tikap so samno lams koryoma tang teni yang work de churt ngoyom bakap so samno lams koryoma teni la teni mi pa ten namju gom jag yora da work chongwa de la sano matang si tambo tikaps wo ngoni ya lin yong yora 고니 린에 파스로 동 버캅선 고니 야린 바다 파 드론도 버캅서 네바로 차고 요레스 델사나 마타 티티가 오 타마데 오 타마 조거라다 파 준체 용카라 모델라 다 람스 삼노든 코드 데오 다다와로 코랑 다다와 차도 요로와 데 파차 자발도 냠도 다 가렌 거죠 용거 요레 데오 청문이야던 거죠 온거라 네바 가차서 마땅 뭐야 파땅은 네바로와 땅을 따라 파체다 드라차드스 다 간다르 데레 가서 데이테 파자야 이다 말아서 웍 동야 대당 다 웍르리 준당 되는 샘그 준이 웍르리 다 웍게직 마직 당 샘게직 마직 때다 간다르 나오차스 망보 요레스 남주 웍로 산노 추네 마다나 웍파 간다 또한도 철간나고도 하고고 말아와 되니 웍게직 대파데 가레리 웍 마우바 가레리 웍 다다와 가레리 하고고요 말아와 데 산노 땅 대와에나 웍 다다와 하고도 요레스 옥 다다와 하고는데 되게 빼지노네 다 샘게직 마텔라 산노 설탕고 요로 다 샘데 간다원도 한도 네프크 샘 가레리야 마움바 샘 가레 다다와 샘 가레리 다 다다와 샘 오테리야 삼디 다 텔미 바랑테 데바이나 Then Titoni Tache, Maranzo, the Debala Sano Tanaje, Mamboje, Kunzin Tang, Dela Subatanje, Mayomba, Maombala Sano Tan, Sembra, the Simcro Mambo Mayomba, that Dela Subake, Negap on Sano Tawa in Naya, this Semjin Tuti in the Detangla, Pingo Baris.
So for the fourth Dharma, for confusion to arise is wisdom, and wisdom arises. So what might come to mind is that we see all kinds of colors and the deity appears and so on, but these are just certain aspects or qualities or activities of wisdom. But when confusion arises as wisdom, mainly what that means is that one recognizes the nature of one's mind. So when one recognizes the nature of the mind, so for example, now when we practice meditation, we often use our breath as a support. And normally we're not really paying much attention to our breath. Maybe there are some who do practice and meditate on the breath, but probably there are also many who have never really paid a lot of attention to their breath. So actually we think that, worldly people think that when we are, a lifetime is when we are born until we die. And however, actually if we think about it from a Dharma perspective, actually every time we inhale, we breathe, that's a whole lifetime, like an inhalation and an exhalation. It's like being born and then dying. And so also when we meditate, we can use the breath to recognize the nature of the mind, looking at the nature of the mind using our breath. So normally when we meditate, we are told that do not entertain the past and do not anticipate the future. Look at the mind as it is right now. So then we can use that meditation of just looking at the present moment of the mind and not the past and the future. We can use that together with the breath. And so when you inhale the air, first you observe how the air flows in through your nostrils and then your throat and your heart, and it goes down, and then you are exhaling the air again. So when on the inhale, there is this last moment of inhalation, this instant, this one moment of inhalation. And that is where you should recognize the nature of the mind. And that moment of breath and the mind, the present moment of mind, are said to be one and the same. So in that sense, now we also use it for the shamatha practice, calm abiding, this technique. And so the breath, one circle of breathing, is divided into these parts of past, present, and future. And so the instruction is, do not entertain the past, do not think about the past, and do not think about the future. So the inhalation in one breath, so if you think about one breath, then the inhalation will be like the past. And then the point of where you have inhaled, between inhalation and exhalation, and this point is kind of felt at the entrance of your nostrils, where you have inhaled all the air and it's time to exhale. That's the present moment. And then the exhalation would be in the future. Now, all from the perspective of that last moment, that point where all the air is inhaled and you have not yet exhaled. So that moment where the last moment of air hits your nose, goes into your nose, that's the present moment. And so from that perspective, the inhalation was the past and the exhalation would be the future. So the instruction then says that do not think about the past. So don't think about the inhalation and don't think about the future and don't think about the exhalation. You just look at this present moment of the mind. And that is one way to look at the nature of the mind. And also normally when we look at the nature of the mind, not entertaining the past means don't bring back like memories of the past that maybe cause you to feel resentful, or don't worry about things that might happen in the future. You're just looking at this very moment at the present time. And actually if you do that, if the mind is kind of staying in the presence in this way, then that will also be really good for your mental health and your mental well-being.
Go desarda. Go desarda. This go tombo chase. Paja go desarda sam. Paja go de ina nge yanja chik labra yanja zum chapsang malate. De garisa nga tara ti keje mkhala yong rang ngani. Keje mkhala yong du sem keje mari sung yorwa. Sem keje mari sung ta sem de 동다 응네 데 샘테 토는 삼 땅거 요리데 베데 토는 가르 요리시드 페나 나랑서 옥데 저지이나 데네 저드 코한다 장지 기니 판도고 요때 때다 장기 주니 판도고 요레스 로드스 사마케 땅거 요 말 가서 사마케 땅거 요 말에 아니 저드네 다 나랑서 옥데 저지이나 코니 파용드 사마케 땅먹어 데니 any the drug ngama the reps yundo sajiwa jangun natin drug na phando do yora any ngama the reps ta ngasu tel samno ji tax ta ti samno that kejing ma haja chawari no ta wol pe ya rang pe ke pe ya so ni drug ti khorang jang di do ro ni khu pha do ro jang ni pha yundo ro ni khu pha do de ni khorang nama de chi go ro nga chu nga ma de reps thong ga cham ti nama de khara ra bore ta nga ma de kejik thama ro ko wok de kejik thama de ra naw ni ko reps to nga chu te chi bol ta yo ro ta ti kap su kare ris nang ti kap su nga ran su wok chong ya de la sam tang de wa ina ma ba cha ro yo ro ma ba la sam tang so ro de ni ta ha de la sam tang tho yo ma drug nga ma kejik thama ro de la sam tang tho yo ma ris yang te pha yu cha du ta ha wok chong ma ya de 토마르 거 일다 장는라고든 저 드럭은 거라고든 야는 저 통화점 디나 유옥다 안가서 나고니 무분 깨직 담보도 양 데드 거 깨직 담보 차 깨직 마 차다 요러면서 마음 차 말아 간스 양거 차더라 요 말이 타마 다다 차다 요라 두사 뜬죠 그 데라 가서 두에 담지 두사 뜬죠 이면서 요 말이 소야 된다 거 데데 다다 차서 데 하고 고더라 뭐네 가서 고볼을 접서 그때서 걸 마음보 서버 송 제도 말에 다다와 히바데 다다와 저지다 네바다 마음 받아서 요 말이 거 가서 dro다야 다다와리 다다와 돈네 양선만 받당데 되네 봐 다다와 저지 대란 이 말아 버려 요러 다대 쳤송고 이 말이더라 thế chỉ là gọi tiếng nghe cho nó lại lúc đó tôi sốt xong rồi thế chỉ là của sao đấy rồi hiếm cũng được xong hiếm cũng được xong
So if we are about the breathing here, we are talking about the point here is that we're talking about the present moment. So there is this a single moment. So there's a lot of teaching on the single moment. And so here, single moment here refers to this term, in this technical term called single moment. But what it really refers to is, it's really the present mind, the present state of the mind. Being like a mental presence is just another way of saying single moment. And so when we look at this single moment of the mind, this present moment of the mind, there's one other example. For example, together with the breath now. So the breath, your breath is like a snake. And the snake kind of moves along. Imagine like there's this like building, this block, and the snake moves along the outer wall of that block. So it moves along one side of the wall, and we can think that, so the snake is your breath, right? So moving alongside the wall is like the inhalation, and which we said before is like the past, what we would call the past. And then when the snake goes around the corner, when it's just about to reach the other side, then the snake's tail does something. It kind of goes up a little bit, and it kind of, how to say, it wiggles a little bit, right?
Cool.
So it kind of like you see this like last moment of the tail, so it kind of goes and then it's gone. So that you see this last tip of the nail, and then it's around the corner already. So then you don't see the snake, right? Because then there's the future. So this moment where you just see the last bit of the tail of the snake is that moment where you have completed your inhalation, and you're at the last moment of inhalation, which is felt at the entrance of your nostrils. And so once the snake is around the corner and keeps moving along the next wall, you're already at your exhalation. So that's when you're exhaling. So the corner itself, where the snake turns, is the present moment, is where you are not inhaling and not exhaling, where you're just right in between. And so that is the present moment of the mind. And inhalation, exhalation are past and future. And so, so when we think about it from that perspective, actually, what we call past and future, we can therefore clearly see is just something that is like a mental fabrication. We are imputing the existence of a past and a future. I mean, it doesn't actually exist. And so there are many teachings on that, on this present moment, given by Nagarjuna, for example, basically to prove that there is no time. There is only this present moment. There is no past and there is no future. It's just past and future are just concepts in the mind that we kind of lean on mentally, but they don't actually exist in reality.
다랑아랑서 데 효고야 가르스나 durjek테나 dur니 산제교 세르데바테 dur니 히바데 지니스 망부 휴직 돈다르바 세와 차브작 돈다르바 다데 타방아서 곰고나 문네 마차 곰드 갑레사보 요레스 갑레사보 요레테 하모 바갑레 데네 데서 곰당도 히나데 제 쫀드 메뉴와 갑레 망보요 레라히드 가라 오 인사레 durjek테나 dur니 요사레스 파 라멜라마도 데나 파 레블렘 데 레라히드 durjek테나 dur니 산제 요사레스 만다보지 상당히 레라보 히르네 에니마 데아랑 히에가나 레라보 히르와 데네 파타히 타와상 따라 용팅 가레 요레 용티네 데 가세마 차버콜라 두게제 마타 더 차랍글 토나 마삼노 땅네 데 곰냠니 제바이나 소수 히바데 사르사르사른로네 데니 만통와는 통화 담바오 시다 제 난通 마명와 근무보 담제 은혜잖아 제 사멸런데바 소수소소라 항상 거야 데니 소순 통원 냠용 두소디 멀파체 히에고아이나야 데니 저히자 미히와다바 다 간다르 텔라소바게 제 데니 냠용지야 요바 데네 데니 다 장보주 bommola 근데 단르니까는 요바다 템 이나 넘버 3제부 추 탐제는 다 데이터 순고 요래데 말한소 대분 삼상 따라 현노야드서 데스카블레 요래 다 다롱에 페이지 칸 휴바르와 다다 same Koran kolma yongwa then taman de ya mi ba no cha do yoro then so so nyam so yongwa re ma then da yin za yina te sa zuzin nang ne da sam tang ya bo yoro samsung.
The reason for mentioning this is that we also discussed before in this prayer here that within a single atomic particle, there are as many like Buddhas as there are particles. So there is like limitless Buddhas. There is like millions and billions of them. And so now to really fathom that in reality is extremely difficult. Now when we meditate and we really try to conceive of that, it's extremely difficult. And of course, what's not so difficult is if we just take the kind of easy route and don't practice so diligently and just hear that, oh, there are that many Buddhas. There probably are that many Buddhas. So we can understand that, and that's easy. But if we really think about it much deeper, actually it becomes quite inconceivable. It becomes extremely subtle, and we go into this realm of the subatomic particles. It becomes extremely subtle, or for example, even if we think about this single moment, this present moment, it becomes extremely subtle and almost inconceivable. And when we meditate, and that which is so kind of inconceivable becomes obvious and apparent, then the experience is just beyond the mind. It's just an incredible experience, and it's something that one cannot really express verbally. It is something that one has to experience directly from one's own experience. And so that is basically really what is meant by that. And this profound meaning is what is shown in this root text and also in the commentary of this prayer. And really that's how all the teachings of the Buddha Dharma really are actually. So maybe these points are a little bit difficult to comprehend, but maybe easier with all these examples. But generally, the mind is just something that we cannot really express in words. It's really something that we have to experience ourselves. So therefore, we should just continue to practice with patience.
And the karche 상제 상가다 제레스 대하고고 요로 남진랑 알았어 도지 되는 거 발상제다 로도카와제 바테 코락부 그 남야제로와 차번 남야가 돈의 손도 산제 남친기 이시 줄어지는 상제에서 말이야. 되니 다 상제에서 그 맥바테사노다 하장 그돌 차랍 탐제게 되니 내롱 모투네 상제에서 말이야. 두게 차니 두 다다와 강는 상제에서 말 대하고고 같이 버려. 마도 상제 남친 요르세데 가레르세데 가시 레침보진 통을 있으면 더소 통은 순거 말봐. 뭐 잘라 첨부제 되니 하고그 디준생 그 상제에서 말해와 남친 시베 통데. 나 상제 그 남친 그 용된 조거와. 남친 그 용된 가레레. 남친 그 용된 레침보진 통을 요르세. 대답 그 남친 그 용대를 왜 말이 남친 용대 가래 성장래 맞추간 통고요 성자 대그 송요래 산제의 남친 요래스디 카셰크 산노 가래 땅소아래 다 림보 그직 하고 요래 뒤좀생 그 남친 요래라래 말에 빼나 레직 parche panang la nan de na rat sa tha ring bo ji la ji ja la ji na den thong la ji nam chin sin kun ba yang kin ro yo re da ga ye den de ne he den de yo ma res de ta yin na song yo re de ju ji da ba de so ke cho lang de so ke 타 랭보 통화 잔주 조랑 산제라 남친 요리 세고나 대초 산제라 잡순 로고사 말이세 자구 요와 자구 자 자구도 설라 잡송된 릭사르세 간서 코란서 타 랭보라 여부 샤담진 통어르세 자구 코란라 맥 충충 마도 요 말이데 샤도 타 랭보 휴에들이요나 통어르 대처럼 자구로 때 동바지 잡히던 릭사르세 문제잖아 책도서 대자 대저 그걸로 대 동다서 써보여요 대서라 다타와리 다타와 가레레 레줌데 시드타 지왕합스케 레줌데 ngane 다타와라 토도 요르다 지왕하스가 저 간다와 하고 그래 시드 데네 파르도네 책존 두소 락포 토니 송요고 요르다 줌데 ngane 요메 다타 히바 ngak 다타 깨자 책지 히브갑서야 깨지 뭐 망보진 로 요르 티깨지 르르 윤도 nga마데 치마치마 그 저차도 요리 대 파카체 타른 로와이나 코 짐데 근데와 사른 로파 사른 로 요라 가체 nga chu ke lo ke cheba ina teni jimde 근데와 사른 로디 teni jimde 근데와 데 mu 가르서 ngaron 저 사른 로 히데 하모 차로 라호 요 말에 teni jimde 근데와 데 총무서 도복 저 차요 하고 요 베나 데 이게 되는 인생 장림보 진디피에 뜨라다 이거 나랭랭도 샤모식 통거와 대마 통야메와 다차짤 코는 친구들이 인된 통거와 되니 빠르게 차 탐지 통거와 같이 발동 같이도 참아 되나이 맞수 협차 로 이거지 같이 뭐 작으로다 냠닌 바텐 사론 로겠지
So what's most important here is that how actually did the Buddha attain enlightenment? So normally the external kind of even like coarse explanation account on the Buddha's enlightenment is that he was in Bodh Gaya and he attained enlightenment, and then he, also before that, he endured hardships, meditating, enduring various austerities for 6 years, and so forth. But that's actually just the more common coarse account of the Buddha's awakening. Actually, it's much more subtle and deep than that, because it was because the Buddha had realized the nature of his mind, and therefore the omniscient, the all-knowing wisdom arose within him. And when that arose, he attained enlightenment. And here we are speaking about the deepest levels of the mind. Then in terms of the time of when the Buddha attained enlightenment, actually it is the present moment. There is only the present moment. So we can understand that when we understand the real qualities, the attributes of the omniscient mind. So normal people might think that the omniscient mind of the Buddha is to see something that's really far away. For example, there is this large mountain, and with the omniscient mind, the Buddha can see some kind of object that's hidden in this large mountain. So that's actually not what really defines the Buddha's omniscient wisdom. For example, Chandrakirti had said, there's no need to think of the Buddha's wisdom to be something far away. It's not like the ability to see distant things, because if that's what it is, then you might as well take refuge in a vulture. Then you don't have to take refuge in the Buddha, because a vulture also can see distant things. A vulture actually has really small eyes, but the vulture can see wherever there is dead flesh. The vulture can see it, and it goes there. So you don't need to be a Buddha to see things that are far away. So it's really more of really this having realized this present moment of the mind. And actually, we speak about karma and past and future lives, reincarnation. Actually, all of that really is in the present moment. So even though on the more coarse level, actually speaking about bardo and future lives and past lives is a very coarse concept of how things really are. So we speak about these distant moments of past lives and the bardo and so on, but actually it is all present within a single moment of mind. And karma also, and that is also how karma is really understood. We can gain trust in karma by understanding this present moment of the mind. And then there is just many present moments following each other. And so therefore we speak about past and future moments. So it's like the past moment or the present moment becomes the cause of the next moment. For example, if I'm talking something, I'm saying a sentence, then my line of thoughts is that one thought leads to the next and becomes the cause for the next thought. And when I'm in the next thought, then the cause has become the past thought already. So actually, when we really think about this, we really reflect on this very carefully. We can get a very profound understanding of karma, cause and effect, and therefore also past and future lives and things like that. So by looking just at the very deep, very fine, subtle moments, the moment-to-moment mind, we can get, it's really connected to karma, and this is how we can really understand karma. For example, if you're looking at this text, if you hold the book far away, you can see an entire line, a sentence. You have this kind of overall picture. And then when you take this book closer to your eyes, then you might just see a single word, and then you see much more detail. You see each of the syllables and the syllable separators and the spaces and so on. So your focus becomes much more subtle. You see things in a much more subtle way instead of just the overall picture. So if you think in this way and look at the mind from that perspective and the omniscient wisdom, then our practice will become much more profound and deep.
Ona sanje ke maung pa chin ke yo mari we yang na chin go mari sina ta hi de jumde tha ye trawa tang chu tam je ke ne lok trawa tam je chin de maung pa se le la bo hyu cha de yo de jum chen de maung pa ke ta nam ya tam je ngarang so la ta ma che zo lo na kare hyo ga ta ngarang so ke 마음 밖에 남 야도서 망보 송 요래랑 맞게 지바 라서 받는 거 돈이야. 테스트에서 하고야 요러 지바 지스바밖에.
So then one might wonder, so if that's the case, doesn't the Buddha know the future, and shouldn't he know the future? But it's actually because of that, because of what we just mentioned, this present moment and the subtle workings of karma, cause and effect, because of knowing the true nature of everything, because he knows that the future, actually knowing the future is quite easy, since there is no future, right? So for this reason, he can also speak much about the future. So that's the Buddha, and for us, the way we can understand all of that is more through inference.
Alright, ta teni ta rabi gopate karirindo serdu tambu chu yongsun zimbu gon mumba sejerteres. Tenla jarwa namje tambu chun zinchen janchup juba kundu nawar ji zambo juba nambar jungwa yang maung karba kundu jebra jeson. Ta te tsikang tambo teke karitin hirsen sanje ke chu de zingo yorese. 단 진 시반데 산제그 추를 가래 요래 롱그 추다 또부 추니 요래다 파다 송라 연라 주니 라서 바 망복그 송고 요래데 간달 롱도 그추 되니 버래 되니 대다 되니 단진 시반데 간달 Jin Hi Tin Nyamli Jijin the Chad Yorwa. Namjung around so get tea pecha la suba to some jin and tar don't Nyamli so young go yora. They young Tokuyuna, that the pecha tena, Tartok Tumdu Chimboji Raga Yore. Jared pecha deba some sunam some Machapa Yobar. Then is Yandon than the Soyang, Jijun there, tar to the gom catalar, gom Nyamling to young gorwa. Then in the Rutul and Sam you and the Tamjia, Tarto on the gom Nyamling to young go yorwa. The Nyamling she by the same Tony, then it Tarada. Then it Topitimba, Drupa Nyamling Tony. The Rayong go do the data when Zinjan Sonja Dere.
So then, coming to the commentary, now we are on chapter number 9, which is an aspiration to fully uphold the Holy Dharma. In our blue prayer book, it's on page 55, verse number 9. May I always uphold the Buddha's holy Dharma and illuminate the deeds of enlightenment. May I train in the practice of Samantabhadra in all future aeons. So the first line is, may I always uphold the Buddha's holy Dharma. And so this term, uphold here, upholding the Buddha Dharma means that the Buddha Dharma that needs to be upheld consists of two kinds of Dharma. It is the teachings of the scriptures and the teachings of realization. So, and then there are many different branches of Buddha Dharma. Of course, there is, for example, the 12 branches of the sacred words and so on. But basically, the Buddha Dharma consists of the scriptures and of realization. And these teachings are upheld through the practice of mindfulness, through practice. So even if we first study the scriptures, ultimately the purpose of doing that is also to practice them, to practice the teachings. So we always come back to, in the end, we end up with the teachings of realization. So of course there is a great benefit in just learning and studying the scriptures already, but the ultimate actual purpose of doing that is to also practice these teachings. Or for example, also when we are reciting a prayer such as this, the ultimate purpose of that too is to actually practice that, what is described in that prayer. Or if one is doing a retreat in an isolated hermitage, the purpose of doing that also is to practice the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha's teachings. So we always must, no matter what, when we uphold the teachings, we always must end up with actually practicing the Buddha's teachings.
Ta de da nyamle jene tene kare chi gore sid da ti tsikang ni ba de jang chu chu ba kun de nawar si ba de ge jang si da donga da je pa me par si ba ti ji ju de dang chöb si de le bu yong tin tam je ning je dang ze wa dang tene de la su bu chu tam je ge ne lo do ben nam chin gi yi xi zer yu par si ba de le chöb si ra de da yong wa la da ju ba la ra le ge ru ju ba si de ngarang su nam jun je nyamli jitang je la ra le ge ru da de ge jitang tam je da pa lam ne tene yin la pel ne da pel sin na lam ne de da ji ba de la tene tsigang ni ba de ge de ting ge yo ba wa da de ndu tene zambo jo ba tsigang sun ba de ge zambo jo ba number jo wa yang si da de ge gare sung go yo ru hu ba ina da ngarang zu ge ju la lower gen de chma je yo de per na nam kha la lower ge tin chai yong ba na yin ge chma je yo de ba re chma de tene me pa chi go yo ru si da de ta yon ba da mala de ta ton pin ji da go de ta ba de ya de ni je ni ma je da ni ma ni la pin ta ya ba zang ge de ni dang ge ma do de da sim jin che mi ba re zhang mi ba re de de da ma ong ba la ka ba kun de yang da de ne de ta ju ba de ne gan da de ta pin ta ya de je yong hyo sen da mo lan da yong hyo re.
Then the second line says, and illuminate the deeds of enlightenment. So first we say, may I uphold the teachings, and then we say that this is because we need to practice them. And then how do we practice them? By illuminating the deeds of enlightenment. And this term enlightenment here in Tibetan is Jangjup, and Jang means to purify, and what is purified is suffering. And Chup, the second syllable, means to accomplish or master, and that is, or to acquire, and that refers to acquiring all enlightened qualities, such as love and compassion and the realization of the true nature of everything, the omniscient wisdom. So that is Chup. So Changchup means therefore to purify and to accomplish or acquire. And this Changchup, this enlightenment, depends on one's activities, which is the illuminating the deeds. So that refers to our practice. Illuminating the deeds means that we train and we practice the teachings, and then we increase, we illuminate those teachings. And then may I train in the practice of Samantabhadra in all future aeons. So now, this practice of Samantabhadra is literally the ever excellent conduct. So right now our mind is stained by temporary defilements, which is just like clouds in the sky. And these need to be removed. So then when we remove them, when we purify them, these temporary stains, training here means not just 1 or 2 days or so, or sometimes training, but at all times, because there are infinite, limitless sentient beings that need to be benefited. So therefore, in all future aeons, may I practice this in all future aeons. In all future times, we must continue to bring benefit to sentient beings. So this is an aspiration for this to be accomplished.
Dati o de raye chupade. Mezeb zu topo gone momba son. Te gandare son de sipa tamje doyang korwa na sunan ye hi ta ne meze ni. Tapta hira tenzin nam taratang yontin kunji meze zu de jurr shibandere. Da sipa tsingtain tambo tege da gare songo yore serdu. Da sipa kansong ko wa du kan zu kan zungmi kan kawa jewan rawa la jewa langwa yina yang si da. Penang da ngarang soso sang tangore soso kawa jewa lang na yore. Teni sunam tang da tsendala ngarang soga che la tharmo jarwa ni teni che la ka tharmo che jarwa lugu gon sunam saba. Teni nga ka mane sekchik tunga na nga ka gon sunam saba. Teni machi da tsek nimbo che joba na sunam sagar. Da tet satam je sunam ko cho hibande da zo lu tang nga tang tso ko toni yi ko toni yang che che da gandar ni sin zimbu toni yang sa ya ba sunam tam je ndo yo de tam je sunam ko cho lan do yo ba re. Da dang teni yi shi ko cho hibande ye shi hibande chu koran ke ne lo namka na yin de bala de ta ngon chubu toni che sunam sa yong ban de so la yi shi ko cho se go yo re. Teni tig cho de la zonta mi bare gawa suma ina ya. Da de indu tig cho de ni zonta mi ba ina ya. Darong mulam jane gare jagar meze ba na ya zonta mi bar khos. Da suna de yi cho ni ga ti cho ni ga go yo ra yin la phin ta ba.
The next is number 10, which is an aspiration to acquire an inexhaustible treasure. And it says in verse number 10 on page 55, through rebirth in all the states of existence, may I gather an endless store of merit and wisdom. May I become an inexhaustible treasure of all virtues of method, wisdom, concentration, and liberation. So first, through rebirth in all the states of existence. So the states of existence refers to the three kind of planes of existence, the desire realm, formless realm. Wherever I am born in any of these states of existence, may I gather an endless store of merit and wisdom. So how do we gather merit? For example, anything that we do virtues with the body, for example, just even joining our palms in prayer, or with our speech, reciting a single Mani mantra or saying something nice to someone. All of that is what we call accumulation of merit. And so we accumulate merit with body, speech, and mind in this way, and it's called accumulation of merit for as long as there is a perception of duality. And then the accumulation of wisdom happens when one has recognized the true and space-like nature of all phenomena, the true natural state. And then whatever merit one accumulates is then called an accumulation of wisdom. And this accumulation is endless, inexhaustible. And even though it is endless, we still make a prayer for it to become inexhaustible. So therefore, may I become an inexhaustible treasure of all the virtues and so on. So even though one has already accumulated, one has already gained the result, one still needs to continue to accumulate those two accumulations in order to be able to benefit others.
Ta gantar kanson ko la le tang mulam tang karaji ge tene jewalang ba ina yangs mulam shiba de ta chancho sambala so ba ke to ne rawang ke chor de jewalang ne yin do la tane le ga wang ge na ta nga so che rawang me bang khor yom ba wa ta de lang khor yom ba kap so ta yin la pin to ba ho se yong go yor ta pin to de tap dang tap se kare re tab hiba de hirab ko chakhe ji re hirab ko chakhe ndu Kable chungchong jamneya donda rev chimbo min tabal tel tichane tap songyo barwa tap dang de hirap serjon de hi rap se de namju hi se nga choke o ngen de hi mambo yore ina rap se ju dinani ko lakpar to churba je mixar thong ma yin ba je ha chang je ma ting sapo no je ha ko yong ba de hirap se per na ngarang choke 마지가 zubolao 파타 안도 마지가 파테나 마즈보 젠 동을 대장래 다 취도 저 돌롱네 냠린 용케 제가 파타 안도 마스반데 라힌 데 남주 잡진 같은 뭐지 근데 송어요래 히람님보 송버갑수 콩라 디 마즈보라 타 파타 안데 제마 자와 잡신로 접다노 지근도 송한데 등문에 자네 제 히라님보 코라는 데라 족 동바니 족소세데 제 메바레야 세르미히 요바레야 세르미히데 제 차마마 렙렙도 리스 마송바제 난데 인도 히랍 시스티야 히바랍 데니 땡진 히반데 가레레 땡진 히반데 제바 나랑서 지고 침봉도 그치 콘진도 침보지게 데니 바여르지로 바 구조 야야메 바 효송하다 마이바 땡이 히바데 고제 양창이라고 제 거여제다. 되는 뒤가라양 요르디 칸 뭐요와. 야마 요마로와 그런가라. 되니 유인 짐바 나게 제 흰진으로 많이 받고 로드파 요르딩을 람세 파야. 되니 띵근데 파 뭐요와 차닌 진세 따야와와 띵진서. 탑도 히랍데 남타를 히반달라 제다 고조 망보 요르데다 남타를 히반데 조 뉴몽바 ndosole tharyong bachal ko yore nam sidi namba nang wan dosole tin nga chon tharyong ko yorwa tin namba de ke nenga de ha ko ndu tin tel thanro yo barwa te chan nam thars jirtang asul lam nam thar hibande patunda ro wena lama ke chi koran lama de ke ta gebhini de ke zepa karen ze yo karen tele chang to so ke yondar chi de ti ju ne so la tharpa ke saung ro yo ne ko wa ne ya thaya ke dro sin ro ti chane ta barwa then no is
so then in all one's lives through it says then through rebirth, so this line here, so wherever I myself am born, for example, so we are either born through aspiration or we are born through the force of karma. And if you are born through aspiration, then, for example, one is a bodhisattva who has attained freedom. And if one is born through karma, then one doesn't have that kind of freedom. And so in whichever way one is born, wherever I'm born, in whichever way I'm born, may I bring benefit to sentient beings, to others. And so then it says here, may I become an inexhaustible treasure of all virtues of method, wisdom, and so on. Method, or skillful means, also is an aspect of wisdom, and the defining characteristic of method or skillful means is that it is a skillful means when small effort leads to a great result. So that's skillful means. And then wisdom, so method and wisdom. Wisdom is, now this term in Tibetan now is Sherab. So she and Rab. And she is a very common term which basically just means know, I know something. And we always use it in our ordinary colloquial language. We just say, I know this or I know that. So it's the knowing of knowing something, but it's not just she, not just knowing, it's also Rab. And Rab means like highest, really uncommon, not ordinary, highest knowledge. So that is a very profound knowing. That's the meaning of Shirab, which often is translated as wisdom. So for example, when you look at a person's body, what you see is just a body ordinarily. An ordinary person sees a body. But then if you look at a person from the perspective of having practiced the Dharma, for example, Garchen Rinpoche, he always mentions that when we read the Heart Sutra and then look at a person's body, the body seems just like a web or like a network of different things. Because in the Heart Sutra it says form is emptiness, emptiness is also form, and what appears can neither said to be existing nor can it said to be non-existing. So this, understand Heart Sutra. So there's this wisdom, this knowing, that this highest kind of knowing that arises, or Sherab. So that's the wisdom here, and then it says concentration, which in Tibetan is Dingzin or Dingzin. And the term Dingzin, it also is translated as samadhi. And it literally means ding, so two words, right? Ding and zin. And ding has to do with something that is not heavy, something that's light. So when something is heavy, so it is light, but so ding is light, and zin is, however, it is steadfast. So it is held in place, which is unlike how we usually imagine things that are held in place. So normally when things are held in place, it's more heavy. Like, for example, if we have some grudges against someone or some resentment, it's quite heavy and we can't move from that. So it's in place, right? So we can't stop doing it. So it's not that kind of heavy being in place and unmovable, but it's the light kind of being unmovable. So even though it's very light, it's also unmoving. It's unmoving, it's light because there is no fixation to anything. There is no clinging attachment. So it is just focused lightly on a focal object, and it doesn't move from that focal object. So that's concentration. And liberation literally means, the word is namtar, Tibetan, and there's many ways to explain that term, but basically here it has to do with the liberation of afflictive emotions. So 2 syllables again, nam and tar, and nam normally means like aspects that are perceived. So we perceive various aspects on an external level. So we see different things basically. And tar means liberation. So for example, namtar is also another word for lamas, a guru's life story. We just call it life story too. It's also called namtar because it's basically his story of liberation, how he became liberated. And then when we hear this story of his liberation as disciples, we can emulate it and train in a similar way by looking at what the guru did, his actions. And then on the basis of that, we train and we see his story of liberation, his life story, which then places an imprint, a seed of liberation into our own mind stream, which then will help us become ourselves liberated from samsara.
Ta yon tin kun jim ze nzut jor tsikang tama jin do ta buken tsam tama re de dan de deni yon tin ta nzu hiban de che ta jala za chen bu mang bo ya ya wa de nzu gang se ge yoran zu kang din na yin ta ngarang zo la tab dan hirap da number tar ba deni janchun chok chu sum je tsab dun la so ba tham je du deni yin pin dro ba la deni tab dan nöba dang deni de zomtame hirap tamje zomtame banro ti tongre de ta yong kho simhola ja kyo res ta de molan de ndrya yob molan jiri da ndrya me pe molan res na ndrya yob molan bro ndrya yob molan yen ba de per na lobda je ge gi na khorang ke ta lobjong ge juram na ne lobjong ya po jang ne te khorang ge ba ka che pha hie ba yin na te ne lobjong khorang ge hiung de zom ta me ba cha no do khorang ge ta nyam nyong da tu so chere ro yong ti chere ro ya ma to chong chu ro ya me de ba de jirtang ngarang zu ta jirtang ge hiung chan sam ta na ta te ta we indu ta ra thap da hira se wan de so ton sam ta ma ne ne che ta 담보 산제가 용된을 삼나 담아이나 다가 용된가 행아랑 주남주 송그 요바리 가해 송特别라 갈래 가보도 차도 요바로와 데니 데오는 다 장초 선바다 자종바다 데니 닌투라서 바탐지 그 용된도 소상나 담아이나 문에 자네게 데 간다르지 단주 무제근 주다베지 차도요레스 데 탐제 인식라 데다베지 요데바 리 당아초라 데다베 요초그레베세데 당아초라 직바 직장 요초그레 아초로 요버게 요초바게 마이게 당아초라 요 차와레 디 마이게 산제게 미바조고 고나야 조토고 말이다 마이게 가레레 셈지시 데 차다 요로와 다라 산제다 나랑츠 누바데양 직바 직장 문에 차다 요바 산제 코랑 그 송용 그 요로와 다니 다 근고인데 송운데 초랑 그 공자 리다 송용 그 요로와 초랑 그 공자 연바데 가레레 kuncho sumbo de sanje kuncho chu kuncho gendu kuncho sunga chorang ke sem nalan dawasi ta tena chapta chopa lana me ba de rewa de khakha chigla mdawasi sanje ngene je mandawa je ina mai je ge lan chomba ya na ma ba yinji ke la humble tene jangbo tendari da ne chorang ge donga la pe seret ne mdok song da sanje cha de song jore da de sanje tenda song yong go yore tene yine ta nge chorang ge donga de la pe se ya mdo ti jimsin de ne chur ke ke ji ya mdo se ya ba ri mdo ngaran cholo goya ji song da gar churang ge chorang donga se ra se ya do song da perna hyuna sanje perna nga yin so korang sanje korang yin da song yo ro ne ngaran cholo pen da samjang da sang don de ngaran cholo pan ta go yo re se pan ta mang bo hyu jin do 장총 샘 검나 이나 핑거리 세완데 비 총총 상다 남은 참포지 요나야 그런 그 제와 냠니 제대 발드네 다 장총 샘 지바데 그 상운라오데 남주 제와 데 반단도 데 검제도 취담지 주니 냠바니 난과다버리 세드 데 동바니도 설때 상다 깨직 잠라지 동바니 문네도 돌아 파상의 땅토고 미바이나야 Tony sebo ko dradun jinjin ko tokwa khorang ngang pha che sam no tang de che o ta che yimba memba hira labya me jo do chonang che wan de jo phar pa che la che to go yo re te pa ta cha de yo ro ta ton ba ni hi ba che to ya yo de ba de pa da no Tony said that in Tapon out so Simnala and Yink Yandro je dra de Koran Dadun Zion.
And then it says, so the order in the Tibetan is different, the syntax is different, so it's the last part of the Tibetan sentence is, may I become an inexhaustible treasure. So an inexhaustible treasure, like a treasure house where you store all your precious things. And so these treasures, as you mentioned, are the qualities of method and wisdom and for example, 37 attributes or kind of practices that lead to enlightenment and engaging in activities that benefit others and so on. So all of these method and wisdom, all of these qualities become this endless treasure. And now one may wonder, is this really something that can be accomplished? Can this prayer be accomplished or not? It can be accomplished, even if we think about it from a worldly perspective. For example, a school teacher, if the school teacher passes on his knowledge to the students, and if they are learning well, then they will acquire all of that teacher's qualities. So just naturally, if they are learning, then the qualities, their knowledge, their learning will just increase. It will not get lesser. And the same is also from a Dharma perspective. When we think about method and wisdom, those qualities of the Buddha. Where some may say that it is very difficult to acquire these qualities. And if we think about the qualities acquired by the great bodhisattvas and the arhats and the shravakas and so on, then really these qualities are like an inexhaustible treasure. But even though we might not be at that level, we can also acquire these qualities completely because we all possess the foundation, we have the basis. We have the potential to acquire all of these qualities. And it is something that we have to develop ourselves. even the Buddha cannot make these qualities be there for us. But we have the same potential. We have the potential to develop these qualities because our potential and the Buddha's potential is exactly the same. There is no difference. So the Buddha himself had said that you are your own master. You are your own protector. And how are you? We say that when we take refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. But the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha are really within your own mind. So therefore, you are never really separate from your refuge, from your protector. So you are your own protector, your own master. And the Buddha was someone, as a human being, a very humble human being and a very honest person. And the Buddha had already attained enlightenment when he said that I cannot clear away your suffering. But then having said that, he didn't just say, okay, so you're on your own now, I can't help you. So it's not like that. But the Buddha said, I cannot help you, I cannot clear away your suffering, but I can show you the method to clear it away. And so then the Buddha showed us how we can clear away our own suffering. And we just need to practice in this way. So then if we really think about it, how we can acquire these qualities, it's really something that it makes sense that we can acquire these qualities. And we can see that these qualities are beneficial. For example, when we think about bodhicitta, cultivating bodhicitta, that this actually is of benefit to sentient beings. Even if we just think about it in an ordinary sense, in a family, for example, if they love one another, then it will make their family be happy. And that is evidence, that is proof that love leads to happiness. So when we meditate, then on emptiness, for example, the nature of the mind, even if we do not have a very deep understanding of the nature of phenomena, the space-like nature of phenomena and the emptiness, we can, just by hearing this word emptiness, that things are empty, like nothing possesses any concrete, true inherent existence, even if we just know that and understand the sound of the meaning of that word, then we won't have an ordinary perception any longer, even though we might not have completely realized emptiness, but just through understanding the meaning of emptiness already, we will not cling to the concrete solid existence of things any longer.
Ta di kapsu ngaran su namjun tap tang hirab tang yungtin de tab madina yang ko ke jezo glo yin la de zam ke yang pinto de yong tu go mare sondo wa di junse ne de ta tarang ngaran su la chorni ya ke amcho yo de ne ta pa pinta ya ke de ne ka ta la pa tang je la so pa yong su so ba chang de teni taso pichu tango re se tengne re de yor ta tarang ngarang so tamjur mulurumbo che shibanda la gudun terwa pena dawa tela sarcha yore ti chani ko mba ji sarcha ti chani mba sarke yore te kolo tu yo marwa korang tu mi chade teni ko tu ter tho marwa nyamala wu tang tu nika adu ko nika ti tho do ti na yinge ta tarang ngarang so la tabda hira 니가 다 좀도 요래 당 좀도 요래 이나 야제지 동거 요래다 대체 야제 동야다 갑레테스 자고 요래 갑레테스 자네 대야 야제 당네 대니 다 디나나 몰라나 따바나 인게 대가 주고 요래 다 몰란 지보 바 칸에 지 몽바 지보 왜 야바르베스나 마리스 몰람 젠도 람세 람텔은 로요 얘는 몽바 인도 tene ti lam de la so yongwa de la molams tene chepar de nga chun de ting gar namju nga chon molan dong ra ba Sanje the Janjo Sambatan Jaka, Amcho Dong Jen Yun Devando, some Korgo Sarva. Kain Sina, Amcho Onda Chen Yun Deva. Sanje the Janjo Sambat, Naranzola. Natsu Kare Lagoyore, Pena, Pala, Nag, Dren Kalazon, Samano Chara. Pala, Amala, Dren Kala, Hilat, Nezo, Yon Samadoje. They kak de la Mazuna, Pala Amala. Dini Nipo Jumarawa. Dina Mulan do your backups. Tang at Dren Robachi in the Sita, Kandas the Puno. Oh, Neta. Zamboji Mulan, the Kanda take things about Kandas. The Gazuke down Lang Jin Donko Yorda. Ke Chimboja and Donko Yorda. Those that's hundred the changes about the May ya Jin ya Chimbo, Dang. So can do Honda. Oh, Charans and the Hondas. I'm sure the Yatung when you wanted it. Don't say the cake or watching Marote. The robot came and don't say the Tura. Near robot and that chicken, the Dachike, the chicken, Jajala. Don't say the Tepaka jabs at it. They are the Doso legal and Rodra. The Dar is this, Sanjay's changes about Tula Joachi or Marite. The Joachi, you know, Joachi and sorry was some sand some sa. Yungo yor tenda mari ba go yor ina kaza yin che kete chi de se chung ju yo marda maran zu chama rang da ro da dan yin chame ya je tong go yor es.
So if we do not have a method and wisdom and the qualities, then also we can't really benefit others. But since we have them, we have to also benefit others. So for example, how we have them is that we have ears that we can hear with, and we also have hands, and we have a mouth and a tongue that we can put to use in order to benefit others. And we should do that because now we have a precious human body, and we have to put that precious human body to use to help others. So for example, the sun and the moon has some illuminating quality, so it can illuminate, but it doesn't have any heat, any warmth. So it can only give some light, but not warmth. But the sun has both, light and warmth, can give both. So we have both method and wisdom. And now, since we have that, how do we put it to use is by increasing our qualities of method and wisdom. And of course, that also involves a little bit of hardship in the beginning, a little bit of effort, because we have to also live up to our aspiration prayers. So that's the point of aspiration prayer. By the way, the word in Tibetan is for prayer, right, is Mön Lam. So Mön is just the aspiration, and the Lam means actually path, but it means that we are also practicing our aspiration. So the Mön is our verbal expression. So we say that, may this be like this, or may I do that, and so on. And then the path, the Lam, is the actual doing of our aspiration. So Mön Lam, or aspiration prayer, means actually literally to do what one aspires to do. And that's something we always have to keep in mind when we are reciting prayers, because when we are reciting prayers, we are addressing the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And so since we are addressing them with our words of aspiration, they are listening up with sharp ears what we have to say. And it's just like telling your father or your mother, I'm going to cook lunch today, so you don't have to worry about it. So then, since we promised to cook lunch, we also have to cook lunch. So we can't say, I'm going to cook lunch, and then just not do it, because that would not be very nice. So likewise, then we make a prayer and we say, I'm going to help all sentient beings, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then we don't do it, it would not be very good. So normally when we recite a prayer, the words are very profound, and so often when we read the prayer, our voice becomes like a kind of a profound voice, and we also say it out really loudly to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas who are then listening, who is speaking, and they listen to us saying, I'm going to do this and that, and help beings. And then if we close our prayer book and then we go and do the opposite of what we promised to do, it would not be a good thing to do. Of course, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas won't really be that sad, but actually they would have reason for being sad if we did that. So anyways, I'm not saying that because I think any one of you or somebody else is doing that. It's not criticism, but it's just something that everyone, myself included, should be very mindful of.
Astati jini da samsa susolo da ngarang su khoa pari de kami pa ke tongda mambo je cha de yore de hyandong dong do se sem dang deni nga ni ju ba dang sem ni tin ba de so pan sung bo je we na ka che tab tak dong tam na de la pingyong chim bo je yore de su nam chim bo je to go yore so so ka.
And so in this way, if we do recite an aspiration prayer with the mind of bodhicitta, then it will be very powerful. But of course, we are also worldly beings and we have a lot of things to do. So we also, of course, can't be too hard on ourselves. But at least when we are reciting the prayer, we should try to really have our mind be one with the words that we are reciting really sincerely. And then if we do that, then we will accumulate great merit.
Oh yeah, da rabi chuk ba de de jukpo gon mo ba la namba je na lo la ta sabje namba je do sanje ji hin ta wa lan juk ba namba ni dang de la na si ni wo ni sanje ji song lan juk ba dang da ri de sanje ji hin ta wa lan juk ba namba ni dang de ni je ni be za ho ra hin ta wa la gam chen ni do ni sum ba de sanje ji song lan juk ba dang yeba de yin hi bu chu chung ko lo ko wa lan juk ba dang nga ba de kar pen juk ba lan juk ba dang juk ba de yin hi ba la ta wa da ti chu yo lan juk ba dang dum ba de san je ji hen un par dru ba lan juk ba dang je ba de yin hi bu te dun ro wa lan juk ba de je ba os
ti kabla juk se ti drop chi pa re
juk hi ba de ta pachir ta la lin te la lin mus la lin de ba no che ri no
mus nya men se
mus
then next we come to chapter 11, which is divided into 8 parts. There's 8 sections in chapter 11. And so there are 8, for 11, there are 8 aspects of aspiring to, it says literally kind of enter, but meaning enter into practice. So enter into the practice of 8, enter the aspiration to practice 8 different things. So number 1 is, so those 8 are, number 1 is there are 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 aspects of entering the practice of viewing the Buddha fields, the Buddha realms, 2 a Then, so these are the first two, because there's two ways. Then the third one is entering the practice of the Buddha's speech. Then the fourth one is entering the Dharma wheel, the turning of the Dharma wheel of the Sugatas, of the Buddhas. Number 5 is entering the Kalpachupa.
Kalpachupa. Tate kalpa ring thong yorwa, kalpa ring bo lan chupa, ke chik lan chupa. Ke chik ri. Kalpachupa ni do atela. Kalpachupa lan chupa tang. Ta maung kalpa kun de chupa je se gang la song song. Ta ke chik thola yang me ta bena kalpa mambo ke ti ke yung de so sa ngarang so yi simpe ke chik chang simpa ke chik tene yang tena mambo je yang ha ko ta ba yorwa ti chupa la chupa ke chik chupa se na go ta chupa la cha cho sama la so chupa la yorwa to jane jupa si de ngani ta chi de lali ta wa no chupa la ken ba te chupa de to ne ten de ke ja ke yor entering ma jupa si ji de kare chupa la ko so chupa si ba de ti chupa la chu sanje ke ke thola tani hizu chu mambo je hinga mambo je da zek to bala spa yorwa ti chu ba de la ngarang zo ka chu thwa so no ko yorwa.
So the fifth one, the Tibetan is a little bit obscure because it literally it says entering the entering of aeons, but it means that one enters the practice of aeons, of aeons of the of Buddhas. How the Buddhas, I know it's hard to explain. Entering the entering of aeons. So I guess Khenpo will explain that later when we get there. But it's literally the entering of aeons. Then so yeah, let's just leave it with a literal translation, and then Khenpo will explain later. So number 5, right? Number 5 is the entering of aeons. Number 6 is the entering into the sphere of that Buddha's view, the mind. And number 7 is entering into the actual accomplishment of the Buddha fields. And number 8 is entering into going into the presence of all the Buddhas.
Oh yeah. Jupa la daran jupa je do wa. Jupa je do wa. Jupa den da je go sre. Ta tin na nga nyamli chi sa de la. Zu yok je wa. Nyamli chi sa ti la zu yok ji tin su su nyamli chi ya wa. Tin na yi ko na de sa
So now this term that is used for each of those sections is jogbam in Tibetan, which has a lot of different meanings, but generally means to enter. But here it means basically to the entering as in embarking on one's effort to engage in practice.
Tene jukpa te de subject ngapa nan lagur te de hunan de sarba te dara lamun la Quran nan ngus yong kro jukpa no yang tan jukpa siba de ta hin gang hyuen ba te be na ta darate da chancho samba da wang topa chancho samba se de da des ya wang topa shiba de da mambo khya da sa je ba yin chu chancho samba tamje la da de da kare sangje ya la ta nye bo cha de yo ro ta de na bo jin na sangje de sa je ba la wang jo to ko yo sa jo jum da la de de ni ngarang so de gong jing de ke ja ba sa sanje la top ji dara de yong din ju de wang jue zui wa jing do
sa ge ba ta ge wang ju
to ma da sa je ba yin chu ge jan chu sam ba yin na de ni da wang rem ji to bi ya ge yo ba nang ge de ni de ti yin chu la de ni da wang to bi yang go zu ge yo ro wa de de da ge jing me je ge yun la tene karere maungpa keta karpa ndepa ta maungpa la ndepa maungpa tata wa karpa yorwa tege karpa thamje la keching me cheke tola hyong ne tene zambu chupa chepa la chu dhupa hyo che hyo tonda tere.
So notice
wang te pache lagu jimare wang ne churang la ta sipo chaya chidi lani mese koso che lagu jimare
wang khan lagu mare sa ge ba de lagu ro
to te nge churang karere lapsa
de lag kor maro nga
to karang se lagu rwe
ji
lamna la te nge ore
tisne yang confusing mare yeah, so the fifth chapter, right, the entering of the aeons. But just what the entering here also means is this embarking in the practice, which for a bodhisattva on the 8th bhumi, a bodhisattva on the 8th bhumi is someone who is already closer to enlightenment. And a bodhisattva on the 8th bhumi is also called one who possesses power. So this is where the acquiring of the 10 powers of a Buddha begins on the 8th bhumi, and then gradually they are acquired, those qualities. And so from that perspective of such a bodhisattva, now the entering of the aeons is that in a single instant, a single moment, so they enter, these bodhisattvas enter within a single moment. Basically, in a single moment, they engage in the excellent conduct of all kalpas. So within a single moment, the kalpas or the aeons of the past, present, and future are contained. So they are contained within a single moment. So therefore, by engaging in excellent conduct in a single moment, in every single moment, they are engaging in excellent conduct in all kalpas, in all aeons, of past, present, and future. So that's the entering of aeons.
Oh, thank you.
Stop here and do dedication prayers on page 11 and 16 in the yellow prayer book. By this merit, may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And page 16. Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, and as did Samantabhadra too, I will follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all these virtues. And then in the blue prayer book, page 64, verse number 21. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed.